Well, hello out there. I hope you're doing well. I'm actually recording this video on a Saturday night. It's about 8 o'clock, and I just finished looking over my sermon for tomorrow morning, and I suppose I could have looked over it more and worked on it harder, but I'm going to just take my chances with that sermon, and I hope it turns out okay. But I just decided at this point in the evening I was going to kind of just slow it down and maybe do a little video before I got ready to go to bed tonight. And there's an interesting verse. You might be familiar with it, but maybe not. In Hosea chapter 4 and verse number 6, God is speaking, and God said this, "My people are destroyed for lack of knowledge." Think about that. God said that His people, these are people who belong to God, perish or are destroyed for lack of knowledge. Now, what was God talking about? Knowledge about what? Well, knowledge about God, but also knowledge about everything that God has made. In order for us to live a victorious Christian life, we have to have a certain amount of knowledge certainly about God and the Bible and God's will and trying to live a life that would be pleasing to Him. But we also have to have knowledge about how to find forgiveness when we sin and mess up. We have to have knowledge about how to live in this world and interact with other people. And we have to have knowledge to a certain extent about our own human bodies and about the minds that God has given us. Now, I was reading a little earlier today, and I came across an article that was very interesting to me, and it's fresh on my mind and heart right now, and I guess that's why I'm making this video tonight before I get ready to go to bed. But it was talking about how our mind has two different modes. There's the active mode and there is the passive mode. Now, the active mode, of course, is used when we're studying, when we're reading, when we're in a serious conversation with somebody, when we're working on a project, when we're having a meeting or we're in a meeting at work. Our active mind, even when we're watching television, unless it's just a super laid-back show where you can kind of zone in and zone out. But if it's a ball game even or the news and you're having to concentrate, your mind is in the active mode. But there's another mode, the passive mode, and some scientists call that the default mode. And for you and me, we might just call it the daydreaming mode. That's the part of your brain that desires and needs times during the day where it doesn't have to actively process information, where it can just relax, where it can daydream, where it can, imagine things, where it can be out in nature. I'm sitting on my back porch, and I've been back here quite a bit this evening, and I've just been watching the birds fly, and I've had some geckos running along across my back fence, and I haven't seen any squirrels tonight, but sometimes I see squirrels running across the top of my fence. And so sometimes our mind needs that. We don't need to be reading our Bibles. We don't need to be preparing for work. We don't need to be working on a project. We don't need to be checking all the social media and doing all that type of stuff, seeing what's happening in the world. We need to let our mind rest. Now, the article that I read this evening said that each day the brain, the human mind, needs between 4 and 4.5 hours in this default mode, this passive mode, this daydreaming mode. Because when we do that, the brain is a muscle, just like we have muscles all throughout our bodies. And if you go to the gym, for example, and you work out your biceps on a Monday, well, you're not going to work out your biceps again on Tuesday. If you do, you're going to wear your biceps down and your biceps will actually shrink. You're going to work out your biceps on Monday, and then on Tuesday, you're going to rest your biceps, and your biceps actually grow while they're resting. That's true for every muscle in the body. Well, in a similar way, when we let our minds rest, when we let our brain rest, that's when it refreshes itself. That's when we become more creative. That's when we gain new energy and new strength. I've noticed, and you probably have too, sometimes in my life, I get tired, not because I haven't slept well the night before, or not because I have physically exerted myself. I get tired physically sometimes because my mind gets tired. And I think about what Solomon said in Ecclesiastes. He said, much studying or the reading of many books can be a wearisome thing. And so even doing good things like reading and studying done in excess can wear us down. So the purpose of this little devotional today is to challenge you during this And we've had another little setback with this coronavirus. Things are getting slowed down a little bit more. And so it's causing us to kind of start over again asking, what is God up to? What is God saying? And that's kind of what I've been thinking today. Well, I think one of the things that God is saying to us is that we need to spend a certain amount of time every day with our brains, with our minds in that passive mode, in that default position where we can daydream, where we can process information. Maybe earlier in the day we read our Bible but we were in such a hurry we really didn't meditate on it. We didn't really process it. We didn't apply it to our lives. We didn't really think about it. And so what do we do when we daydream? Like, for example, I read some great scripture today in Joshua. Well, I read it, but ever since I have read it, and I've been trying to process that, and I've been trying to think about, now, what is God saying to me through that? And so I encourage you, if you find yourself physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually tired, I would encourage you, turn the television off, because 9 times out of 10, unless you're watching Andy Griffith or one of those type shows, now sometimes I like to watch that, because that is, you kind of can be in a passive default mode doing that. But if you're watching serious stuff on TV, a lot of times that's going to cause you to actively process information. I encourage you to spend some time in what the Bible calls meditation, where you just think, where you think about what you've read, you think about a sermon you've heard, and you just begin to process that and think it over. Or maybe you're like I've been some today. At the end, I worked earlier today, and I've been home for the second half of the day. And so this afternoon and evening, I've spent some time on my back porch watching the geckos, watching the birds, and looking for a squirrel. And I haven't seen a squirrel quite yet. But anyway, it's been very relaxing for me. And I think that's why I said a few moments ago, I don't want to look up my sermon anymore. I know what I'm planning on saying. God will meet me when I start talking. And I'm going to take my chances with it and just let my mind be relaxed. And so I encourage you, use that passive mode, that default mode. Let yourself daydream. And when you do that, you're going to find that you're going to have more creativity and more energy, and you're going to feel better physically. Now, you say, John, there's no way that I can spend 4 hours a day doing that. Well, I understand that, and I probably can't either. But remember, you don't have to spend 4 hours consecutively. The article I read today said that, for example, if you're at your desk working, every 90 minutes, take a break. And walk. If you can go outside, if you can get in nature, it makes it a whole lot better. If you can be out with the trees and just, I mean, well, I know most of us live in the city, so it's kind of hard. But my backyard is at least I can see a lot of trees, and I can see the sky and the clouds and everything. So I kind of feel like I'm out in nature. I don't have any back neighbors, and so that's a good thing. Or at least they're a good ways away, the ones that I do have on the other side of a ditch. So I've got some open space over here. But whether it's your back porch or somewhere else, get in nature and let your mind rest. Every 90 minutes, take about a 15-minute break. Walk around. Do something. And just close your eyes. Get a little rest like that and just let your mind refresh. And probably as you go through the day, you'll get at least an hour or so during the day. That's not wasted time. That's not being lazy. That's something that is absolutely necessary for you to hit on all cylinders at your job and for you to be creative. We're not robots. We're not machines. We're living beings. And we need rest, and we need to recharge, and we need to refocus. And sometimes we've got to let our minds just wander and kind of daydream, go out there like that. When we come back, we have insights and ideas that we never would have had we not taken time to do that. And then in the evenings, if you have a job where you work, for example, from 8 to 5, I would encourage you in the evenings, don't take your work home with you. I've done that so many times in my life. And a lot of times I have done it, and I thought, boy, I got a lot done tonight, and now I'm ahead. Well, I may be ahead for a few days or a few weeks, but that catches up with you out there somewhere. If you work 8 to 5, be off in the evenings. Be with your family. Watch a ball game. Get on your back porch and watch the birds. And I'm telling you, it'll relax you and it'll give you some creativity. The word for today is reduce stress and reduce anxiety by activating the passive mode of your mind, the daydreaming part, and see if you don't feel better and see if your mind isn't clearer and sharper and if you don't have more creative ideas. Have a great day. I look forward to being with you next time.